Well, hello everyone. Happy Saturday. It is the end of the week, which means it is time for anime talking. Now we're moving over to Saturday, which I'm actually liking a little bit more. The tone of Saturday just feels a little more relaxed, a little bit more, hey, it's the weekend. We can just hang out. It doesn't feel like the end of the week where it's like, okay, this is we're wrapping everything up on Friday. It feels like we're well into the weekend and we can just kind of relax and chat and enjoy ourselves. And folks are talking about Cautious Hero and Descendants of a Bookworm and a classic Genshiken. Here's a question. For those of you who've watched Genshiken, have you watched Kujibiki on Balance? Like the not just the little clips, but the full anime they made of the anime within anime of Genshiken, which is really weird. Yes, I'm still on break, which seems strange that I've been on break for the past 2 weeks. Go back to work on Monday. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that now in the sense of getting back into a regular routine. Yes, so when they made Genshiken. So for those who don't know, Genshiken is an anime about otaku, and within the show, they're all obsessed with this fictional anime called Kujibiki on Balance, or Kuji-un, and so that they would have clips of it, the creators of Genshiken made, I think it was one episode of Kuji-un themselves, so they could insert little clips, and show it on TV and so forth. And so they had bits of Kuji-un made for the show, and then for Genshiken, and then after Genshiken, I think after season 2, they ended up making, I think, a 12-episode season of Kujibiki on Balance. So I think I have it on DVD at some point. I found it, $20 at a convention or something. So, yeah. Hey, Morph Ball. Hello. Kujibiki, Kujibiki Unbalance, Kuji-un. What I do for the break? A lot of things. So I spent some time catching up on anime, spent some time working on stuff around the house. As you probably saw, the Hobby Hopper theme for this week for this month is woodworking. And so I've been working on some woodworking projects, and you might see some of them scattered around behind me. That are in various stages of development. So videos about that will be going up on Wednesdays, and I'm looking forward to sharing those with you all. And I've been doing some cooking, getting nailed down on things. I actually made some sourdough starter, which is this sort of dough that you make. This sort of, it's not even dough. It's sort of this wet goop that you make that is the basis for sourdough. So I made that at the beginning of the break, and I've been feeding that every day. And apparently it takes a while for the sourdough starter to actually, accumulate the full flavor. So I've been baking that, using that and baking it, which is a lot of fun. I'm going to do another audience question vid, probably. I think it worked out pretty well last time, so I'd like to do that again. Maybe do that a little more often. We'll see. I do want to, tonight, try out, as I mentioned in the Discord, tonight I'm going to try doing sort of a call-in show via Discord. So I'm going to try hooking up the live stream to Discord, in a Discord audio channel, and see if we can't get that wired in so folks can actually call into Discord and we can chat over audio. So that'll be fun. It'll just be a fun experiment. Yeah, sourdough and honey is a pretty darned awesome combination. Although I'm a fan of butter. Bread on butter I could eat all day. In fact, I had some sourdough and butter for some cheese on sourdough bread with an apple for lunch, and that was pretty darn good. Some more Nadia tonight. We'll be watching, I think, 4 episodes of Nadia tonight after the stream. Looking forward to seeing how Nadia develops. Speaking of a slower show, the pace of Nadia is definitely one that takes a while to progress. So I'm hoping that the plot will kind of take off a little bit. I know last time we saw the monster for the first time, and from what I've seen of clips from later episodes, we finally get to see what that actually is. Yes, Akko. So what I've heard is basically Nadia, the character, got so popular that the financiers came back and told Hideaki Anno to insert 10 episodes into the middle of it that focused on Nadia, the character, the girl, which really annoyed Anno. And so we'll see what those episodes turn out to be. Apparently, it's very obvious that suddenly it becomes very, very Nadia focused, very girl focused. But yeah, it feels very Ghibli. Well, like we said, Hayao Miyazaki kind of pitched it. It was his idea, or it was an idea that he worked on, and then he couldn't finish it, or he actually couldn't start it. This would have been 90s, so this would have been when his feature film career was taking off. So he basically had to abandon it, and the financiers went to Gainax and said, "Hey, we have all the basis for this. Do you want to make it?" But yeah, that's. So it has kind of that feel, and Ghibli, Gainax knew who Ghibli was. They knew who Hayao Miyazaki was, and they understood that this was the show was very much meant to be in the style of those classic sort of world masterpiece theater, Anne of Green Gables kind of shows. So they very much intentionally made it like that. Yeah, I think there's extra episodes, and again, we'll find out. I've heard they're just very obvious. It's people drooling over Nadia for 10 episodes, basically, and it's very kind of introspective in that sense, where it's like, okay, look at Nadia. Look at this. This girl exists. This girl exists, and she's cute and pretty, and boy, so. We'll find out. Yeah, I'm trying Discord because I think it will integrate easily, and we'll find out. It's one of those classic problems where any tool you choose, it'll be like, some people just won't have the tool for it. I'm just gonna try Discord. We'll see how that works. Experimenting with different tools. Oh no, literally, apparently in the episodes, like, the characters in the show start fawning over Nadia. Like, they form a Nadia fan club in the show and are, following her around and all that. Like, it's very, Anno was not subtle. I don't know how much fan service there is in it. I would assume. I mean, it's Gainax. Gainax has no trouble being fan servicey, but it's usually not a. It's usually the classic sort of innocent fan service where it's like in Gunbuster, where we cut to a shot of the girls in a bathhouse, and they're all walking around naked, but there's nothing like sexual about it, right? There's nothing, there's nothing kind of directly pervy about their behavior in that. So yeah, apparently Anno was really annoyed at the idea of focusing the show on a character just because she was pretty. So he made it very obvious that's what was happening. Who knows? Yeah, well, stop by after the stream, and on SideTube we will be watching some more of Nadia, and you'll get a feel of it. We're only 3 episodes in, so you can watch these episodes and then go back and catch up if you like, very easily. It's fun to watch it with a group of folks. So that should be interesting. But wait, got a thing over here. Thing stopped. Weird. Did y'all hear that? All right. Thank you, Morphball, about the Ghibli panel videos. Glad you found that useful. All right. I think we're good to go. Let's do this thing. Good evening, and welcome to the latest anime news for the week ending January 4th, 2020. A neighborhood watch or a neighborhood association from the Fushimi Ward in Kyoto has sent a written request to Kyoto Animation regarding the site of the first studio building, which is scheduled to be demolished starting this month. The association requested that the studio not build a public monument or park at the site, as the large number of visitors that such a place would bring could disrupt the tranquility of the neighborhood. They also requested that their members be allowed to participate in negotiations about how to use the site once demolition is concluded. You can imagine how busy that place would get once it becomes a public memorial. KyoAni has not yet announced any plans for the site after demolition, apart from President Hideaki Hata mentioning the thought of a memorial back in July when the fire first occurred. A representative of the studio told Japanese press, quote, "We'll consider all the factors and make a decision after consulting with the bereaved families, local residents, and other related parties." So good luck to them on that. Definitely a serious subject worth a lot of discussion and thought. Moving on. A TV commercial aired this week to announce an original anime project from director Goro Taniguchi, creator of Code Geass, and writer Kazuki Nakashima of Promare, Kill la Kill, and Gurren Lagann. The two are collaborating with Aniplex to produce the new series titled Back Arrow. Nakashima will be writing the scripts for every episode himself, as well as doing series composition, very unusual. Voice actor Yuki Kaji is set to star in the anime. Interesting. Tatsunoko Production announced on Wednesday that its classic Hakushon Daimao anime series is getting a new TV anime adaptation, and no, I've never heard of it either. The new TV anime is set to premiere on YTV in spring 2020. The original anime celebrated its 50th anniversary last year and ran for 52 episodes during 1969 and 1970. It inspired a spin-off series back in 2001 and a live-action special in 2013, so apparently it's a thing. Also a thing, a television anime adaptation has been greenlit for Sega Games' Hortensia Saga smartphone RPG. Kadokawa's monthly Comic Alive magazine will also serialize a manga adaptation. Leiden Films, all caps, Leiden Films, is animating the project. They previously produced a short animated video based on the game, as well as the opening movies for Part 3 of the game, so they know it. Hortensia Saga launched on iOS and Android in 2015, and places the player in the role of a young feudal lord learning about the kingdom of Hortensia through party battles and encounters. So, looks like a pretty straightforward source for anime. Last weekend's Comic Market event also brought a couple of anime adaptation announcements. Always exciting. First up, an anime adaptation is in the works for Kennoji's Cheat Kusushi no Slow Life Isekai in Sukuro Drugstore, or The Slow Life of a Cheat Pharmacist, a drugstore built in an alternate world. The heartwarming fantasy story, so they call it, follows Reiji, who suddenly gets transported to another world after becoming tired of his dead-end job and life. In this isekai, however, the main character doesn't end up with the best combat skills. Instead, he becomes skilled at medicine making. His options become rapidly popular, so he opens a fantasy drugstore and lives a slow life catering to his store clients. Interesting. Kennoji began posting the story on the Shosetsu ni Naro website in 2016. It is published in print in Hifumi Shobo's Brave Book imprint, and also inspired an online manga adaptation. Sounds fun. And a fun little twist on the isekai concept. Digital novel brand Lose, or Los, who knows, announced an anime adaptation for its Maitetsu adult game at Comiket this weekend. A promotional video at Lose's Comiket booth revealed that the original anime, entitled Rail Romanesque, will air on Tokyo MX in 2020 as a series of 5-minute shorts, and thus presumably less adult. The original 18-plus visual novel debuted in Japan in 2016, released for PlayStation in 2018, presumably all ages, under the title Maitetsu Pure Station, and it's getting a Nintendo Switch release on the 16th of this month, presumably without the adult content. The game was also released on Steam in 2018 by Isekai Project. So, some options for checking that out. The game takes place in an alternate reality Japan where trains were paired up with humanoid modules called rail lords. Honestly, it seems surprising that it's taken this long to get a Cute Girls Who Are Also Trains series, considering previous precedents. Come on. And I mean, look at that. Yeah. In the story, the main character decides to save his hometown, quote, from water pollution caused by the proliferation of factories. By chance, he reawakens Hachiroku, a recently decommissioned rail lord. He becomes her owner, not creepy at all, and decides to assist her in finding her missing locomotive while attempting to save his hometown in the process. End quote. Hisayoshi Hirasawa is serving as both director and sound director at Studio Saeta, with Takayuki Noguchi on character design. It'll be cute. Studio Ghibli released its annual New Year's message on Wednesday and mentioned its current and upcoming projects. And this got the internet's attention because among these was a report that they are continuing work on 2 new films this year. Now, it was previously revealed that Hayao Miyazaki is directing the fantasy feature film How Do You Live, but details of the second new film have yet to be released. We'll have to watch for more news to find out. And to be clear, that could be a short film, it could be live-action film, who knows. The How Do You Live film was reportedly 15% finished as of October and has been in production for 3 years. Miyazaki began drawing storyboards for the film in 2017. Studio Ghibli's works typically have set production schedules, but they are experimenting for this film with having no established deadline. And we can see how that's going. Producer Toshio Suzuki commented, quote, "I'm looking forward to how that comes through in the work," end quote. Not sure if he's pleased. Along with the 2 new films, the New Year's message mentioned the Nausicaa Kabuki stage play, the upcoming Ghibli Park, and, quote, active overseas expansion, end quote. Meanwhile, Crunchyroll and Funimation both published rankings of fans' top anime of the decade this week. Funimation conducted a series of fan polls to determine favorite series of the decade by genre. Fans ranked My Hero Academia as the top shonen series of the decade and Fruits Basket as the top shoujo. Favorite original series of the decade was Kill la Kill. And favorite overall animation was Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. To see the whole list of categories and runners-up, check out Funimation's blog. Crunchyroll's decade ranking showed the most watched series of the decade by region of the world. That's interesting. North America's most watched anime of the decade was, unsurprisingly, Naruto Shippuden. It was also the most watched anime of the decade in Asia and in the Middle East. Black Clover was the series most watched in Europe, Africa, and Russia. In South America, the most watched anime of the decade was Dragon Ball Super, and in Australia and New Zealand, it was My Hero Academia. Crunchyroll even included rankings for Antarctica, whose most watched series of the decade was Hunter x Hunter. Apparently, that's a popular one with research scientists. Black Clover and Naruto showed up in most of the regional lists, so those are apparently popular all over the world, while series like Attack on Titan and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure only rank on top in one region each, North America for Attack on Titan and Europe for JoJo's, if you were wondering. Again, check out Crunchyroll for the whole list by region. And of course, popularity lists don't really matter, but they kind of matter, but yeah. Okay. Yep. You're reading that headline right. Virtual idol Hatsune Miku is going to be performing at Coachella. The renowned music festival announced its lineup of performers on Friday, and it seems Japanese pop culture is continuing its spread into the mainstream consciousness. Vocaloid program Hatsune Miku and singer and Harajuku fashion model Kyaru Pamyu are each performing during both weekends of the festival. Coachella features established and upcoming musicians from across genres. The headliners of this year's festival are Rage Against the Machine, Travis Scott, and Frank Ocean. And a virtual idol. And finally, if you were around the otaku internet in the 2000s, you might recognize this illustration of a goth anime girl drawn by character designer Hiro Suzuhira. In late 2018, Suzuhiro herself even posted on Twitter about the number of English responses she's received about the character. Well, a year later, in December of 2019, Suzuhiro was asked on Twitter if fans could redraw the artwork as a tribute. She agreed, and the redraw challenge became so successful, the associated hashtag trended on New Year's Eve. Hashtag Gothic Anime Angel 2020 is filled with artists' takes on the classic character in their own style, including a new version by the original creator. Cute. So, if you need an updated goth anime forum avatar for the new decade, and let's be honest, who doesn't, check that out on Twitter. That's all the news for this week. Thanks for watching. And you're right, Miku at Burning Man, it's probably already happened. Let's be honest. There's probably already been some kind of Miku installation at Burning Man. Pretty nuts. Just scrolling back through the list. Update your MySpace anime profile. There we go. Exactly. You know, got an account on friend feed somewhere. I've got to update. But yeah, that's a thing. I should check. Okay, so we got to ask. Hatsune Miku Burning Man. I'm not seeing anything. I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised there hasn't been some Hatsune Miku thing at Burning Man. It's just somebody, throwing something together. I don't know. Oh yeah, MySpace is actually a thing. It's last I checked, it's still a thing with musicians. There's still a thriving sort of musician culture around MySpace, just because it's still there, it's still functional. Why not? Agreed. All rights and profits from Miku at Burning Man go to JJ from now on. You heard it here first, folks. But yeah, I mean, gosh, I do love that Gothic anime girl got a second life there for a little while. But yeah, that Maitetsu visual novel. I mean, the train lord thing. I don't know. It's hardly the weirdest concept I've ever heard in anime, and so I'm sure it'll just end up being this inoffensive, cute girl thing. We had derby girls. We can have girls as trains. Oh, I think I think Akko was kidding about MySpace, but MySpace is actually a thing. Last I checked, there are active people on MySpace. Because it was so successful with musicians, a lot of musicians kind of latched on there and are like, okay, this is my thing. A lot of folks actually, use it. And again, that was as of my last check on it. What is up with girls in anime? The airplane. We have that. There are girls as airplanes. I mean, that's Strike Witches, right? Yeah, I played Blue Steel. You know things. What was it? Azure Lane. You know, literally girls as battleships. Wasn't there one where girls like literally transform into jets? Or like you know their spirits are infused in jet airplanes or something to become the jets. Um, yeah, Japan does not have a does. Japan is very willing to objectify things. And granted, you could argue that goes back to you know Shinto and the idea that there are spirits in anything. There are spirits in rocks and trees and so forth. So the idea that an inanimate object can have the you know can be a person is a or not a person but can have a soul or personality is not a huge leap from that. Maybe that would go. I don't know. Yeah, Yahoo Answers is still a thing. Not something I trust, but it's still a thing. Are there too many isekai? I don't think so. I was actually thinking about this today. Think about how many mecha series there were in the 80s. Think about all the mecha series. There was just mecha, all throughout the 80s. And I would not argue that there were too many mecha series in the 80s. Not just as an anime fan, I'm just like, okay, yeah, there are a bunch of mecha series. Fine. That's what was popular then. And so I don't think the fact that there are a lot of isekai series means that there should be fewer. Right? This is what's popular. This is what folks enjoy. And they're certainly working. Girly Air Force, thank you. Yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I mean, I don't think isekai is the. Isekai could be the new mecha, but I mean that in the sense that there's usually some big thing. I'd argue in the 70s, like sports anime were the thing. Like there were just tons and tons of sports anime in the 70s. Were there too much? I don't think so. A lot of sci-fi in the 90s. But that was the thing. And again, people are clearly buying isekai merchandise. People are clearly watching the stuff in Japan and supporting it. So, fair enough. I think the thing with All Girls Being Machine is that it allows you to connect two demographics. For Girly Air Force, for example, it allows you to have cute girls and cool fighter aircraft in one show. So here you get the train otaku, or just cool trains and cute girls. So it allows you to pull in multiple different otaku, and it also exposes fans to other fandoms, right? People who like cute girl shows might watch this and then start to understand a bit about train fandom, right? I think that makes sense. What anime did I enjoy most last year? Since I have no memory, let me pull up. I'm going to list some of the highlights, and then I'll pick one. Dororo, Boogie Pop and Others, Demon Slayer, though I haven't seen much of it, but I respect it. Just haven't gotten to it yet. Astro Lost in Space. Ascendance of a Bookworm. Didn't I Say to Make My Abilities Average in the Next Life? No Guns Life. And I think I'm going to choose, this may sound strange, No Guns Life, because No Guns Life is anime, but not traditional anime. It's heavy noir. and it has definitely some anime tropes in it. But it's different enough to be interesting to me. Not that the normal stuff is bad, but that was really a standout for being distinctive visually, while also being just entertaining for me and having an interesting take on a protagonist and who the characters are. That was that was one that just really, you know how you'll sit down to watch anime and something will come on and you're like, oh, this is, I couldn't have even expected this. Yes, more of this, please. That was my reaction to No Guns Life. There are others I enjoy more in the sense that they are more fun. I can consume them more easily. But I think that was the TV series, at least, that just, worked for me. And you're right, JJ. One of the advantages of Isekai is that you can do any genre in Isekai. You can do romance, you can do action, you can do drama, whatever you want. And Isekai just gives it a new flavor. Very helpful. Did Mecha series have an older target audience than Isekai have today? I don't think so. Mecha were aimed at young teens, basically. Now, I think general anime demographics have changed over the years. So I think people watching anime today are aged differently than folks who were watching anime in the 70s or the 80s, for example. But I don't think I don't think there was an intentional, aiming at a different target audience. I think it's also complicated because there was kind of a split. You had a lot of mecha that was clearly aimed at a young audience, and a lot of mecha that was clearly aimed at an old audience, and there wasn't a lot of kind of general audience mecha, right? Where if you were, there weren't a lot of 8-year-olds watching Armored Trooper Votoms, right? Which is a very serious, dark show, whereas, Voltus V or Die Rugger or any of the more super robot shows, there weren't a lot of. I mean, there were some, but those are definitely aimed more at kids. Like I said last week, I think, like we said last week, I think Demon Slayer is definitely the larger target audience sort of, winner of 2019 in the sense of, I think Demon Slayer was the show that came out and most strongly and got a big fan base. What are some good Isekai? I don't know what good means. Isekai even older folks can enjoy. So I think, kind of back to JJ's point, I think it depends on what kind of genres you like, because you'll probably find whatever genre you want within Isekai. It's just a matter of kind of what you're looking for. So, for example, I Thought I Told You to Make My Abilities Average in the Next Life is a screwball comedy that has some parody elements in it. So they'll make jokes about Dragon Ball or Hunter x Hunter throughout the course of the series, but it's basically just a goofy comedy. So if you like that, you'll like Make My Abilities Average. If you're looking for something that would appeal to somebody who has who liked 90s anime, for example, I would actually go back to the 90s Isekai, like El Hazard, which was the first big Isekai series. Certainly the one that popularized the idea of Isekai. And I think that's where I'd go with that. Because it's, it is 90s, right? So it'll look like that. You're right, Hibernate Anime is technically Isekai. That's a really good point, actually. I hadn't thought of that. That's funny. Whereas if you want a more action-y Isekai, there are several of those. I'm trying to think of a few. Cautious Hero is, it's a comedy, but it has comedy action. Slime. That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime is a little more action-y Isekai series. Maze isn't Isekai, is it? I thought it was, or am I thinking something else? I'm probably thinking something else. No, I'm not. Yeah, I don't think Maze is technically an isekai, in the sense of somebody from our world transformed, or sent to another world. It's characters sort of bouncing around to different worlds. So she falls into a fantasy world. I think. Oh no, that's right. Her house falls. Okay. This was not a thing in the anime. It's a thing in the original storyline. That you know, the characters that the protagonist's house falls into another world. Yeah, Digimon's isekai. I mean, kind of. Right, the digital world is more of a parallel world they bounce back and forth between. So they're not stuck there permanently. But romance isekai. I mean, Sword Art Online. I guess that's trapped in a video game as opposed to true isekai. Although people tend to conflate those, right? If Log Horizon is isekai, then Sword Art Online is. Yeah, I wouldn't call Tamers an isekai because it's really just little pocket dimensions that, appear and disappear in the real world. They're real world based, but they just kind of bounce into the digital world occasionally. Whereas in first season Digimon and Digimon Adventure, they're trapped in that digital world for a while. They just get back. Spoilers. Spoilers for Digimon Adventure. All of you, folks who are planning on going into Digimon spoiler free. We actually watched the first episode of Dog Days during a HomeCon last weekend. I'd forgotten how much fun Dog Days is, how much is light entertainment Dog Days is. Well, I'll go by that definition. All fiction is isekai, right? It doesn't really become a useful term. I can think of other anime where you bounce into another world and it's more romantic. I mean, El Hazard is romance isekai. It's an action. So I don't think it's a spoiler to say that El Hazard is like an adventure story, and then a romantic plot line, develops in there, and that's hinted at early in the show, and the promotional stuff would talk about that. It's not a secret, but structurally, it's more like, oh, I'm in this new world. What about this girl, right? So, yeah, Wizard of Oz is absolutely isekai. There's no question that is straight up isekai. And I mean it's a common trope. I mean, the original writing of Beauty and the Beast is that it's sort of a quasi isekai, in that the Beast's castle is this sort of alternate dimension where things behave differently. So you can travel in and out of it, but it is this sort of special place. A lot of fairy tales have that idea of you go off the path a little bit and you end up in this strange place that you can't easily come back to. Fushigi Yugi, absolutely. Ooh, that's a good question. Fushigi Yugi came out when? 92. El Hazard was 95. So Fushigi Yugi came first. So I'm going to have to revise my statement. I would say Fushigi Yugi is the first big popularizer of isekai. It's a great point. When do people start calling it the isekai genre trope? 10 years ago or so. As the genre really built up. As we started getting a lot of them, 5-10 years ago. Why are they so fond of isekai? I don't know. Why is anyone fond of anything? Why does anyone get popular, right? Why did South Park get huge? Why was James Cameron's Avatar the biggest movie of the year? Why was Titanic the biggest movie of the summer? You know, if you were to twist my arm, I would say that there's a desire in Japan for. I mean, I'll put it this way: I'm not advocating this. I'm saying an explanation could be that there's a desire for adventure. There's a desire to imagine a different life, to imagine yourself living in a different environment, and this fuels that. The idea that, oh, if I did something, if something happened, I could live a much more exciting, adventurous life. Yeah, escapism. Well, yeah, is it that, are you transported to an actual, alternate world or just some virtual environment? You can kind of bounce back and forth between those two things. What do you think about those anime recommendation charts, like the ones popularized by A's 4chan thread? I don't find them particularly useful. I find that they are they're very memeable. They're very shareable. Memeable isn't the right word, but they're designed for quick spread through the internet, and to spark a lot of interest and debate and so forth. But I think they're basically, one person's random opinion, not random, but one individual's opinion about recommendations, and so you should give that as much credence as anyone's recommendation online, right? Like it's a data point, but people treat that as though it's gospel, as though it's well, I should watch this then. No, it's somebody throwing something out there. I don't put a lot of faith in anything coming out of 4chan, mainly because there is too much opportunity for trolling to worm its way into the material. Where people find it hilarious to do something that is, 98% accurate, and then one thing in there that's a joke, and you're supposed to know the joke to see that it's a joke, even though the only way you could know that joke is to be on 4chan for 6 years. So yeah. Do I think anime fans are generally good or bad? No. I think the morality of anime fans is, the same as the morality of any given swath of the human population. Some are good, some are bad. Yoko, you make a good point. I mean, I believe, and I'd agree that I think that the high school romance shows of the 2000s were escapism. They were this constructed ideal of high school experience that didn't really never really matches reality. But they were this form of escapism to back to those halcyon days of high school when everyone's emotions were running high and you were feeling everything very strongly and what might have been. I think that's totally there. The charts are absolutely popular, but I think that's because of internet culture. And I think it's also because a lot of people want to be told what to do. They wouldn't tell you that, but a lot of people are afraid of making bad choices, and so they will give up those decisions to other people. And so instead of just looking up anime and trying things out, they will say, well, this expert on the internet, they told me to watch this, so that's what I'll do. And yes, Jay, I got into my first anime were on VHS. Absolutely. Yeah. The key shows, Air, Clannad, Canon are absolutely idealized high school romance scenarios, which is I think why they're a big deal. Yeah, but you should watch El Hazard. If you like Isekai, you should watch El Hazard. Joke. See here. What sort of is anime generally more about escapism than live action? I think animation in general, and anime in particular, is absolutely more about escapism. Look at shonen titles. What is Naruto and Dragon Ball Z and all the rest than escapism, power fantasy, right? This idea that instead of living our lives, we will imagine what it would be like to be a super ninja or a super saiyan or what have you. And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to fantasize about living a different life. It's why we're into all this stuff. It's why I have all this science fiction and fantasy around. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that it can be too much, and you don't want that to be the only thing, right? You don't want to you don't want to consume things purely because it's a power fantasy, right? Is this guy easier to write about because we can self-insert ourselves and therefore they can ask for the audience the setting of the world? Easy way for exposition? Yeah, I think that is absolutely a factor. It's also easier to imagine ourselves, as a protagonist. It's easier to imagine ourselves kind of reading the novel, kind of looking over the shoulder of the protagonist. So it's not us, but we're kind of close in on that character and that experience. But yeah, the I novel, the idea of a novel, of a story from a particular character's very specific perspective has always been very popular because it's easier to write because you're introducing things. Most of the time when you have a story where something happens that is strange, it helps to have a point of view character, to have an audience identification character. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is told from the perspective of several different layers of people writing letters back about things that happened and kind of relaying this story through letters, through other things, kind of give it that sense that I'm having to explain this to somebody else, so I have to give all the context behind it. If I had to come up with an anime right now, boy, that's a big question. Yeah, anime was hard to find back in the day, and it's why fandom was very different. Like, you tended to really obsess over the shows that you owned or had watched because that's what all you had exposure to. That makes sense, Spin. What Daryl Surratt said, that video games provide that layer, that connection between the idea of empowerment through this other character, and that is closer to isekai than, say, a standard science fiction and fantasy book where you're reading about other characters in this scenario, as opposed to a video game where you are that character a little more closely. Yeah, I agree, Morphal. I'm not into power fantasy at all. I'm actually kind of into anti-power fantasy. I'm into a series where you have power and that kind of sucks. Where that power is a burden in some way. It's why Rurouni Kenshin is my favorite shonen series. It's why I really dug Shaman King, because Yo is a powerful shaman, but being a shaman is a dangerous profession that he's constantly, he's very chill, but you can tell he probably wouldn't choose to be a shaman. And I find those stories more interesting. Anyway, and obviously, Naruto has all sorts of trauma. He does not have a very happy life. But right. And that's the thing, when folks ask what anime would you make, one of the reasons I like anime is because it surprises me. Because I would never have asked you to make No Guns Life, or Haibane Renmei, or Serial Experiments Lane. I couldn't conceive it. And so coming across it, I'm like, oh wow, this is fascinating. I certainly have ideas for anime that I would make, but oh yeah, totally. And you're right, JJ. One of the advantages of video game adaptations is that you have all sorts of stuff already ready for you. You have your setting, you have your bad guys, you have the monster of the week, all that kind of build. One Piece is absolutely escapism. This is a particular escapism. I think fans are entitled in the sense that they do feel entitled to video content. Yeah, I would say that's certainly true, and that's just the way things have changed. You could argue that the knitting community is entitled because compared to 200 years ago when it was hard to find thread, right? It was hard to knit. So I think just as access gets broader, people naturally become used to that and come to expect it. So entitlement tends to be a very negative word, and I think it is true, and it has a negative impact. But I think it's also just kind of natural in that sense. Yeah, exactly. Lane is all about, oh man, every time Lane tries to do something right, things screw up. Bad things happen. Yeah, no, exactly, Jay. Those VHS tapes. You're like, I'm not getting rid of this. Like, this is mine, my thing. Give it to me. But yeah. So not to get into spoilers, but I'm nearly done with Land of the Lustrous, and it is absolutely that anti-power fantasy. That is its DNA. Is this idea that there are cool people doing cool things, and you may want to do that, but be careful what you wish for. It's not that power corrupts; it's that power brings with it all sorts of other things. I think I mentioned this at some point, maybe it was a couple weeks ago. My old boss was able to buy a house a little bigger than he could really afford. He got a good deal on it, so he could afford it, but it was it was a really nice house. And then came to find out that it needed the pool system needed to get flushed every year, and that cost thousands of dollars. And anything you needed to update was some custom system that was incredibly expensive to update and took weeks of custom people coming in to change. So it was this really it was a much bigger responsibility than he thought it would be. And I think that's the kind of stories I think are interesting. I have not seen Your Lie in April. No. Just haven't gotten to it. Nice. It's hard to find VCRs these days. VCRs are getting worrisome. I do predict there will be a point at which there's a VCR resurgence. Kind of like the vinyl resurgence. People want the excuse me. They'll want that feel. They'll be like, ooh, I want that classic retro experience. And obviously there are other reasons for vinyl, but yeah, and that's the thing, Spindowin. Anytime you get something, anytime something gets popular, it gets hegemonic. It gets average. People tend to watch the same things, especially with the internet. There's kind of no getting around the fact that people tend to gravitate towards things that are in the middle, because that's what the middle is. That's what averages are. So, the show that people watch, the shows that a lot of people watch tend to be the more average shows, because that's what appeals to the most people, right? Most people are not going to watch Land of the Lustrous. Most people are not going to watch those things. It's one of the reasons why I actually found Madoka Magica's popularity so surprising, because Madoka Magica is very much a niche show in that sense. Right, yeah, the whole Bebop storyline. Yeah, it's certainly more difficult to produce independent anime nowadays. I think that's just I think we're kind of at an inflection point as well. I think it will become a little easier in the coming decades as distributed work gets easier, as you're able to, you know, call on one animator in Osaka to do this shot and one animator in Hokkaido to do these 3 shots. And so you'll be able to crowdsource anime, I think, a lot more easily than you can today. That is already kind of done by anime studios as it exists, but it's still pretty geographically, co-located. But I think, and especially as anime becomes more global, it'll be easier to find people who can do that. That's honestly my dream. You guys probably all know I formed an anime studio twice to produce short anime with the goal of eventually making a movie. And both times it didn't work out because just finding quality animators was extremely hard. If you have these skills to animate, you're already employed at a studio. And just, there's lots of things around there. But my hope is that eventually we'll get to a point where it's gonna be a little easier to crowdsource those sorts of projects. But that's kind of just the reality of anything, any genre, any medium that people will become. People will gravitate towards things that are middle of the road, right? So, is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Otherwise, we can move. Oh, I want to do anime history. Let me do that. Because we do have some anime history this week that I want to talk about. Hello, welcome to This Week in Anime History. It's been a few weeks since I did this because there were some quiet weeks, and also, frankly, I kind of forgot. But this week's an important one in anime history, and I want to make sure I mentioned it. On January 1st, 1963, Astro Boy, aka Tetsuwan Atomu, premiered in Japan. This is widely considered to be the first anime, at least the first Japanese animation to have the anime style, whatever that happens to be. And it was a big deal. It was certainly the first weekly half-hour full animated TV series in Japan. And it certainly did establish a lot of anime, sort of animation tropes, animation styles. And it was super, super popular. We would not have anime today without Astro Boy. There's no question that this was the starting point for the popularity of TV animation, and also for a lot of things. I mean, Astro Boy was watched by a large number of people. It was clearly aimed primarily at kids, but adults watched it too. And it was exciting, it was adventurous, but it could also it had humor, it had heart, it dealt with important things about what it means to be human. There's just a lot to Astro Boy, and honestly, I'm not sure if this was a thing that was decided before the show or not, but also, perhaps coincidentally, January 1st is Astro Boy's birthday. So Astro, or Atomu, canonically, the day he was first brought online is January 1st. So happy birthday, Astro Boy, and happy birthday, the TV series of Astro Boy, and technically happy birthday, anime. So that's that. Yeah, well, Spin, a lot of people move on from anime because it's doesn't pay that well. So they start in anime, get some popularity, and then they get better paying gigs elsewhere. Frankly, that usually is the reason. Anime is the springboard to like video games, which pay better, and other things. So that's a thing. Yeah. Unfortunately, especially powerful computers are expensive. But yeah, folks move on. The guy who did the music for Gundam Seed and a bunch of other stuff. I can't remember his name. But he moved on from that to scoring like live action TV shows. Yoko Kanno went on to do commercials. Oh, by the way, you ever wonder what Yoko Kanno is doing recently? Her most recent work was was a musical composition for the coronation of the new emperor of Japan. So if you go online and search Yoko Kanno, she live conducted a performance of her suite for the new emperor of Japan, which like the emperor watched and supervised. It's kind of, geez. Fondest memory of anime we watch. Go for it, Jay. Fondest memory of anime we watch. Don't know if it's a fond memory, but I certainly remember watching Tenchi Muyo while recovering from having my tonsils removed. Certainly remember that a lot. Watching Lane. Oh, I have one. Again, not really a happy memory. I remember popping in the second or third. It was one of the later discs of Now and Then, Here and There, and popping it in and opening up my DVD collection to start sorting it through, and watching the disc through and realizing I'd gotten to the end and I was still sitting there with my DVD collection open and hadn't made any progress whatsoever. I literally was staring at the screen the entire time. Like it came on, my hands went still for the duration of that entire DVD. I just could not pull my eyes away from what was happening on screen. It was that affecting. That was a big deal. And realizing, my gosh, anime can do this to me. Anime can just arrest my attention for something that's not flashy. That show is, it's Dragon Ball. It is not, but my gosh, Marine Boy. Wow, nice. Again, as a kid, I'm kind of weird because I grew up kind of anime adjacent. I grew up watching Voltron, not knowing it was Japanese, just that it was a cartoon. I loved that show. That was my favorite show growing up. But that kind of primed me for anime later. Yeah, fondest anime memory, I don't know. So definitely a very positive memory was going to Otakon and going to the North American premiere of Gundam Wing Endless Waltz in a giant theater room, stuffed full of thousands of otaku, and Gundam Wing was big at that point. Gundam Wing was probably at its peak, and they showed Endless Waltz, and none of us had ever seen it. And this is back when it was, you could not find copies of that online. And if you did, it would take you, 5 days to download it with internet speeds. And so we were all watching Endless Waltz for the first time. We were all huge Gundam Wing fans, and people were screaming at the screen, and characters would show up and get wild rounds of applause for them just showing up. It was an experience. Yeah, totally, JJ. The Go Line Voltron, which I now have a copy of. Weirdly enough. Yeah, well, Morph Bell, now and then here and there it's Coney. It's child soldiers in Africa. It is a fantasy version of African child soldiers and all that happens there. They just isekai'd it so that it would be palatable, so the folks would immediately turn the screen off. But it's realistic because it's based on real events. Sadly, Comic-Con at 11. That's an experience. Dang. Yeah. Yeah. Weird kids untie. Trying to think. Let's see here. No, Toonami showed Endless Waltz. Like they had a television premiere, but it premiered at Otakon before then. It had a North American premiere at Otakon before that. Kenshin, nice. That's the thing. I mean, and this is why we're all into anime, because anime hit us hard, like bright slaps. No, anime gave us those fond memories, and that's why we came back to it. I'll give you a fun memory. As a teenager, I was a big fan of the Sci-Fi Channel because it was about the only media outlet to celebrate science fiction and fantasy in the mid '90s. And so I would just sit down and watch Sci-Fi Channel. Whatever was on, you just give it to me. Pour it into my brain. And I remember sitting down one summer, and they were doing this thing called the Festival of Anime. And I was like, oh, I've heard of this Japanese animation thing. And just watching all sorts of weird movies and films and Ninja Scroll and Demon City Shinjuku and Dominion Tank Police and Project A-ko and Tenchi in Love and what else did they have? Akira, pretty sure was on there too. And just getting exposed to all of these weird things. They were totally unlike anything I was used to. But it was science fiction. Like it was there were spaceships and lasers and so forth, so I could parse that. And just seeing this completely different thing was kind of nuts. It was. I remember sitting on the couch in my parents' house, just my mind being blown at all of this animation and all these stories. That were just completely different. These characters that were, they could be just ridiculously goofy, and then suddenly serious. Morphball, I don't have a favorite anymore because I don't really, my brain doesn't really do favorites, and I've come to realize that there are other shows that I enjoy more than Lane. Lane, is an amazing work, but I wouldn't sit down and watch it every day. And there are other things that I would absolutely just watch every day. And so it's a different kind of appreciation. It's a different kind of love, right? So I'm just a completely different, I'm a different person. I have different loves now. I can love different things, like having children. That's totally fine. But that's the weird thing, is that you get... people get into anime through all sorts of things, in lots of different ways. It can be something you watch streaming in your own bedroom, or it can be something that you experience with other people. It could be this very exclusive thing or this very common thing. It's kind of weird how modern anime fans get into anime because it's popular, because it's what all the other kids are talking about, right? I'm into anime because I watch Naruto with my friends, or my friends told me to watch Naruto and I did, and that became my favorite thing ever. And it's like, it's great. It's just very different from from how I got into it. Have my tastes changed a lot over the past 10 years? I don't know. Somewhat. That's a really good question. I think more things have been made available to me. So, for example, there weren't as many screwball comedies coming over when I first got into anime. They existed, but they just weren't what people assumed anime fans wanted to watch. They assumed they wanted to watch Ghost in the Shell, broadly speaking. So I enjoyed them when I found them. Battle Athletes Victory it can be a very screwball comedy, but that's something I've developed more of an appreciation for. But I think again because there's just more exposure, there's more availability. I think my tastes are mostly the same. I think also because there's just I got into anime more for the sci-fi, for the more serious stuff, and there's somewhat less of that these days. My tastes have changed because I've grown to appreciate the stuff that's not that. I don't need a Lane or Boogie Pop Phantom or a whatever every season to be happy. I can appreciate a goofy isekai series, or just a light isekai series, right? That's fine. Well, exactly, JJ. I could watch Dog Days over and over. Not that I've seen much of it. There are things you can consume in different ways and enjoy more. Yeah, and again, that's one of the other odd things is that back in the day, everyone knew all the anime because there were only 10 of them available in America, right? Like, you went to the local VHS store and it was Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Akira, Ranma and Half, Ninja Scroll. That'd be it, right? And so everyone knew what those were because that's what was easily available or available at all. So you just if you said I'm into anime and somebody said Ranma and Half and you were like never heard of it, it'd be like well, here you go. This is a thing. You should know about this. There wasn't that idea that well, of course not. And the other weird thing, I was actually talking to somebody today who was just in Japan for 2 years, and she was saying that the weird thing in Japan is that unless you're a hardcore otaku, if you're a 12-year-old, 14-year-old watching Fairy Tail, you've never watched Dragon Ball Z. You've never watched Yu Yu Hakusho or Hunter x Hunter. You watch Dragon Ball Super. I'm sorry, you watch, Fairy Tail or whatever's on now. But you have no exposure to the classics. You would not know what Rurouni Kenshin looks like. You have no exposure to that. So it's a very different thing. So yeah. I think it's part of it, Morph, that pacing tends to be that they need to catch attention quicker because there's just so much of it. It's also why first episodes have tended to be a lot more catchy. There's almost always something in that first episode to kind of get your attention or to have some twist or whatever. You can't wait 5 episodes to really get into your story. You can't build the way anime used to be able to. They do not experience old classics. They just don't. Again, unless you're hardcore, you get into anime when you're 8 and you watch Precure or Detective Conan, whatever. Then you graduate to some of the other stuff that's on right now, but you don't go back. And then you kind of get out of it when you when you hit your teenage years. My opinions on yaoi and yuri, they exist. Like I don't know what kind of opinion I could or couldn't have about them. They are things, and people like them. Fair enough. Yeah, agreed, Morph. So I showed the. It's actually really interesting. I showed at HomeCon the original Boogie Pop Phantom, the first episode, and the first episode of the new Boogie Pop and Others, and realizing, oh man, like the first episode of Boogie Pop and Others gives you nothing. Stuff happens, but you are expected to just continue watching and put it all together as you watch. Whereas the new one has a lot more explanation, a lot more to kind of pull you into the story, and just a very different approach, right? No, they never go back. It's like young adult fiction, right? A kid today will read Harry Potter and Golden Compass and whatever other things, but they're not going to go back and read the Boxcar Children. Or children's stories from 50 years ago. They read modern young adult, and that's it. Obviously, some do, but it's that idea that no, I read the current stuff, not the old stuff. And then when you hit 15, you stop it altogether. I disagree with that, Desert. I don't know how you can look at Demon Slayer and say that it looks worse than the average show from the 2000s. There's a lot of really cheap stuff back in the day. Yeah, and they won't go back. Why would they? That stuff's old, right? Unless you become a fan, unless you get into it. But exactly, Spin. How many Dragon Ball Z fans have read Dr. Slump? How many modern fans have seen Trigun? How many of your, yeah, how many of your peers have seen anime from 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Yeah, and that's the thing, Morph, is that there's been a strong evolution of anime style, which appeals to different people in different ways. I am lucky in that I enjoy the anime style of pretty much every era. So I like the '80s style, I like the '90s style, I like the 2010 style. The 2000 style I'm actually not a huge fan of, as they were transitioning to digital, and it kind of got weirdly plasticky for a lot of shows. So I like the highly saturated colors of modern anime, but I like it as a style. I recognize that is what it looks like now. Whereas, like say in the '90s, because you had to save on colors, you tended to have much more iconic characters, much more iconic designs. So you look at the lineup of the characters in Rurouni Kenshin, and you can tell who all those characters are from a distance, all that kind of stuff. Whereas for modern anime, that's not as true anymore, because you can have a wider range of colors and gradients and all that kind of stuff. But that is just how it's evolved, right? And yeah, and that's the thing, Akko, is that American anime fandom is very different than Japanese fandom. We generally, if you're an anime fan, if you're an otaku in America, that means that generally means you have more of an appreciation for all of anime. You watch a variety of stuff. And it's because our fandom, you get into anime and you get on Crunchyroll and suddenly you're seeing, Captain Harlock, right next to Sentence of a Bookworm. Old anime and modern anime are distributed side by side. You go to the Funimation booth, and they're showing they've got stuff from current season and 30 years ago side by side. So it's just a very different experience. And obviously, you go to Akihabara, and you're going to see Evangelion merchandise. But then Akihabara isn't where Japanese 12-year-olds hang out. Very different. Sub versus dub, yes. There's actually a really interesting YouTube video by by several of the people involved in Pokemon. And I think it was at one of the animation festivals, talking about their transition to all digital production, where they now draw everything like in the software program and then go from there. So the characters are, in other words, they draw lines and they can move around the eyebrows in the software package. It's not a drawing they've scanned in. And they talked about they spent months and months on that digital package, fiddling with it and giving feedback and requiring changes to the software package so that Pokemon would still look consistent, because they didn't want the style to change with the new software application. So they really and obviously Pokemon has evolved its art style, but they think very hard about how those visuals will look and how they can get across things that way. But yeah. Yeah, Hunter x Hunter, there's a show where the styles are very, very distinctive. Why was Dragon Ball Super so popular? A couple of reasons. One, Dragon Ball in general is a very different, it's a very unique anime in the sense that it has been popular in America since like the late 90s. And that popularity has been consistent. You can't really point at really pretty much any other anime that has been around that long and has had that big of a fandom. And it's kind of evergreen. There are constantly folks coming into it, but also even somebody who is into Dragon Ball as an 8-year-old and who has and who doesn't watch it now, they still have that fondness for Dragon Ball. Add to that the controversy with Dragon Ball GT and the fact that there's this idea that Dragon Ball kind of had faded away in terms of the fact that they weren't producing good Dragon Ball anymore. Dragon Ball Super comes along, and then all of a sudden, if you've heard of Dragon Ball and you want to get into it, you're 8 years old and your older brother is like, oh my gosh, this amazing thing, or your father or whatever. Dragon Ball Super is a great place to get into it. If you already watched Dragon Ball Super is a great thing to watch because it hits all those nostalgia, things. So it was this kind of perfect storm of fandoms and generations and all that kind of stuff to get folks into Dragon Ball. I think, at least. So the thing about sub versus dub for me is it depends. I think it's important. I would prefer that fans be willing to watch either and recognize that there are good Japanese performances and bad Japanese performances, and good English performances and bad English performances. And watch whatever makes sense for you. As an example, I've watched a lot of Gundam subbed because it wasn't dubbed when I watched it. Dubs were not available. I watched it subbed, so I'm used to those voices. So, Char Aznabul's Japanese voice is just very iconic to me. I'm just very familiar with it. So when I watch Gundam, I tend to watch it subbed, since they tend to reuse those voice actors a lot. So I would rather watch it for that, but not because I think that, every Japanese voice actor is better than every American voice actor, right? Maybe someone do a movie based on the history of anime. I am considering doing some more primers on geek archaeology on the channel. So keep an eye out for that in the new year, perhaps. Code Geass is weird. I don't know why folks like Code Geass. And that's not a slight against Code Geass. I just think Code Geass is so oddball, that it should not be popular, right? It's a very acquired taste. So I'm surprised people like Code Geass. And I've not seen much of Code Geass. But just what I've seen, I've been like, this is interesting. I want to watch it. I've nothing against it. It's just, it is not your typical anime. Yeah, Dragon Ball, I think, is one of those just common things. It's anyone can talk about Dragon Ball. Everyone has an opinion about Dragon Ball because it's been around forever. You have any given American has probably seen at least a clip of Dragon Ball somewhere at some point in their lives. What do I think of tsunderes? They exist. Same thing as yaoi and yuri. Right. Why in the world Cowboy Bebop left mystery? What do you mean by Cowboy Bebop left mystery? So I may have mentioned this before. A friend of mine described Code Geass as at the end of every episode of Code Geass, they blow up the moon, and they spend the first half of the next episode frantically recovering from blowing up the moon in the previous episode, and then do it again. That's Code Geass. Pretty much. And that's the thing. I have great respect for a show that is odd, that's oddball. Code Geass can be crazy, and that's great. We can have shows that are nuts. That's anime, right? Heck, there's plenty of any given anime you want to describe. It's gonna be pretty weird if you describe it to an average person. Gundam Wing, absolutely. Gundam Wing's a farking weird show. Really oddball show. I could not describe to you why I like Gundam Wing, but I love it to death. Yeah, and it's there's all sorts of tastes, right? One of my best friends cannot get into Lane. That's fine. Why was there no second season of Cowboy Bebop? Because it wasn't popular in Japan. It was a mediocre success. It was huge in America, but there was no particular Bebop fandom in Japan. There was they were able to scrape together the money for the movie because American fandom was so big. They knew they could, they would have just enough folks in Japan plus the folks in America to make that work. But there was just no way they could find finances. And Bebop was a very weird scenario. Bebop was sort of a one-time thing where they were basically told, here, make this thing because we respect you. But yeah, there's no real... There was never really an expectation of a second season for Cowboy Bebop because Bebop is not a traditional anime series. It is, there's no reason why there would be a second season of Bebop. It was original. It was very Western. It's all about Western tropes. So of course it appealed in the West, but that didn't really, it didn't really have much for the average Japanese viewer. Big O is another good example where Big O is very distinctive. It's very different. It's not. It obviously is dealing more with Japanese tropes, mecha tropes, but. Yeah, and Samurai Champloo did much better in Japan, and Space Dandy. And that's the thing. Technolize, Ergo Proxy, those are not popular, unfortunately. I love those kinds of things too, Lane. But they're just, it's not Dragon Ball Z, it's not Naruto, it's not populist, which is unfortunate. It's real. Well, Big O got a second season because there was a network in America willing to fund it. Cartoon Network, put the money in for a second season of Big O. But by the time Bebop came out, Cartoon Network was not in the same position. Cartoon Network was not going to be funding anime at that point, and certainly not extremely expensive anime like Bebop. Bebop was a very expensive show. So that's the thing, is that I know I've talked about that with JJ. We've talked about this, that I'm happy that we all love anime and that we all want to see more anime. I enjoy imagining what a second season of some of these things would be like. And simultaneously, I also hope people have realistic expectations and understand that not everything is going to get a second season. A lot of things just, never get that popularity, that success, that combination of financiers and people interested and willing to do it and so forth. These things cost millions of dollars to make. So, the fact that they were made is kind of a miracle to begin with, right? So, Spin, I am not aware of any particular critical reaction to Cowboy Bebop in Japan. I have not heard of folks in Japan really paying much attention to Cowboy Bebop. And it was not a commercial success that I know of. Again, it did okay. People watched it, but yes, Akko, that is a plan, but we're talking here. That's the thing, Matt. I don't think Bebop needs a second season. I think that ending is perfect. I completely agree. Yes, I do have a Mao, Brent Newhall, on my anime list. If you want to check out my my list. I don't think manga is up to date, but anime is. Really interested in that. But yes, I would love to do a call-in. Yeah, Tamers is a spiritual sequel to Lane, actually. Did Japan have an Emmys or Oscar kind of thing for anime? Yeah, there are a couple of different award shows. There is an animation like award ceremony in Japan, and there's a what is it? Yes, there are awards in Japan. Derpy, you are free to distrust whatever you want to. That is actually that is a way of viewing Digimon Tamers. I would not be surprised if Konaka wrote Tamers with that kind of in mind. Not that is the official explanation, but I think you could interpret it that way. Okay, Derpy. How does that disagree with what I said? But it is certainly true that Western fandom has a difficult time understanding what goes on in Japan. And Derpy, that's not what I said. As an example, this person I was talking to earlier today said King of Prism, massive in Japan, hugely popular. People go to King of Prism events like crazy. They go and they watch those King of Prism movies over and over and over again and talk back at the screen, right? And there's just no way for us to be aware of that. So. Well, Derpy, the idea came from the fact that while Cowboy Bebop won awards, there is very little evidence. There's very little written reviews of Cowboy Bebop from Japanese press that praise it and say, please make a second season. That's what I'm saying. Lots of things win awards and are not critically popular and are not commercially popular. So I completely agree that Bebop won awards. But we don't have, I have not found evidence of that. It might be there, but I don't know. But if you can find evidence, I'd be happy to see I'd be happy to see that. So, let's see if this works. Akko, you have not been around for some of the old streams. I used to stream for anyone here remember the 12-hour stream? Where I streamed for 12 hours straight? That was a thing. Yeah, it's the thing, J-Biz. Anime is an industry first. Things have to sell. And the fact that Bebop never had a lot of merchandise. The fact that there was not a lot of doujinshi that I know of. That doesn't help. Yes, I streamed, just like this for 12 hours. Now, we punctuated by live streaming anime and such. So I'd show an episode of things here and there. And we were doing, I had co-hosts back in the day. So we were chatting as well. It wasn't solo. But it was me on there. Yeah, the streams were way longer. So let's try this. I'm going to see if I can hook up Discord. I don't know quite how I'm going to do that, frankly. So first thing to do, I need to switch out the audio. So let me put on some headphones. You may hear some weird buzzing as I try this. Yeah, been around a long time. Matt, this was years ago. I sadly could not tell you. We were watching anime, talking about the latest anime stuff. We would do our news stream, our weekly news segment would go for an hour and a half, frequently. I would try to aim it for an hour, but it usually went to an hour and a half or more. That just the news segment. So we went on for a long time, and then we talked about other stuff and talk about other things, and then we would, I'd show some anime, we'd talk about that anime, and go back and forth. So that was the thing. All right, so we'll see if we can't hook this up. All right, so that's that. Let me make sure. I can. Okay, so the audio is still coming back through here. I wouldn't be surprised for Bleach to have a comeback. Might happen. So one sec. One sec. Okay. Let me just try. Doo-doo-doo. And I think I want that. Boink. Oh, huh. How do I... Apparently I already set this up, but I can't find it. In device. That's not what I want. Hold on. Stand by. Stand by. Like I said, I'm just trying all this stuff out. Nope. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hold on. For some reason, it's not giving me what I want. There's some way. Doesn't seem to be a way. Sorry, the setup I was going to use isn't actually showing up where I thought it would. I have a thing. And I have a thing over here. This might not work, which is okay. I mean, not everything works all the time. Gorilla, I would agree that Bleach had the one of the fastest falls from grace of any modern shonen. Popular opinion turned against that real fast. Again, I haven't seen it. I can't, I can't comment. I don't think SAO had a pretty big fall. I think SAO is still pretty popular. Correct. I haven't seen Bleach. So you're saying I can't have an opinion about the audience reaction to Bleach. I can't know what other people what other people say about Bleach. I'm talking about I'm talking about the reaction to Bleach. I'm saying that, that the popular opinion about Bleach turned. You're saying I can't have that opinion. I that seems a very odd take to have on other people. That other people cannot see what other people react to. One sec. Try this a little bit more. One second. Yeah, unless you're talking about something else, which is fine. I had a whole thing set up for this, but it's not showing up on the other side anymore, which is weird. Maybe I disabled it or something. Or maybe it disabled itself, right? Nope. Huh. Okay, well, that sucks. I'm talking to Akko because I assume Akko's talking to me. Because Akko just, Akko, you're not, you're making statements about Bleach stuff that I am responding to, and you're responding. So I assume you're responding to me. I'm old and dead. Whew. Yeah, that's one of the problems Bleach had, JJ, is that Bleach was very story driven. A lot would happen in terms of different characters' relations and such. And so if you miss an episode here or there, you'd often be very behind, which didn't help. Clearly Isekai. Clearly Isekai. Where are the cute girls? Wait, where's the, cute maid? Come on. I need a cute maid in my life. Or 3. Alright, so... Anyway. Hey, Akko. Okay. You're calm down. You're being... you're trolling now. Matt, what are you looking for clarification on? Formula wise? Again, Akko, nobody here has stated that they hate Bleach. So you're misunderstanding something pretty fundamental that I've seen. I'm not seeing anyone saying that they hate Bleach. Now, Mozone, in contrast, he's disagreeing. Hey, Brad. So I do believe. Hey, this is the worst thing to happen in this stream. I'm fine with that, right? Akko, Gorilla has done nothing wrong. Calm. Chill out. So, I do believe it is time. We've been going for about 2 hours now. So yeah, we definitely need to switch over to Nadia. Because we have 4 episodes of that to watch. So we have a... yeah, we've got some time to churn out here. Anyway, yeah, Discord did not work, sadly. But I will play around with that more. By the way, before we break, I will be at an anime con next weekend. So I will try to live stream, but again, hotel Wi-Fi is always troublesome. And I will do my best there, but who knows? Also, I may have a panel scheduled for 9 p.m. on Saturday. I never know. But yeah, we will try to do a Discord audio. So I will try to do Saturday anime next week. I may try Discord calls, but I will probably do that more seriously the week after, just because that's kind of weird. Yeah, go ahead and ditch the headphones. This is gonna be my brain isn't working. This is gonna be Animore up in Baltimore. So that is what I'm hoping for. Fair enough, Mozan. But yeah, so let me pull up the side tube. 1 second. And I will need to, actually I can do that now. So I need to switch that over. 1 second. All right, so I'm going to paste in the link to the side tube. So that should take you over to a live stream where we will be watching some more episodes of Nadia and the Secret of Blue Water. Again, if you haven't watched Nadia, this is a good place to jump in. We're only 3 episodes in. This will be episode 4, and you can catch things up. So, yeah, we'll be back again hopefully next week, if not the week after. Thank you all so much. This has been a great conversation as always. Again, I don't mind us getting, a little heated. That's fine. We're otaku. We're passionate. That's what fandom is. So hope to see you guys over there on the side tube where we'll watch some Nadia. And hope you all enjoy. Have a great week. See you next time. Watch more anime.